Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So nice to see you. I know we have
You
so
as
much
well.
to talk about today.
Yes.
And the last episodes have been so enlightening, and I just feel like I'm still playing the tapes through my head of these powerful stories.
Yes.
So what do we have today?
So today we are talking about the B word.
B word, let me think. Well, if it has to do with finance, it's probably somewhere in the world of budgeting.
Budgeting. Yes. So we're going to be talking about budgeting. I know.
I hate it.
A lot of people, they freeze in their tracks on it, right?
It has such a negative connotation to it. It's almost like, I'll tell you what I hear. When I hear the word budget, I hear, this is what you're limited to. And I always think, man, what if we lived like outside of limits? What if we looked more at how to get rich worksheet or how to build wealth worksheet rather than budget? Because I think part of the process of building wealth or getting rich is starting where you are and setting goals to get where you want to be. And I think I see it, you know, Dave Ramsey, that's one thing that I think that he incorporates right at the beginning is he calls it a budget worksheet, but it's not necessarily negative, but it's the first step to building wealth. So he does refer to it as a wealth building tool, but he still calls it a budget. I want to get rid of that budget word.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the budget word, and I think get your big girl panties on.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, you've got to be responsible. And obviously we're adults, but all of a sudden, I think definitely you just go, oh shoot, I got to get serious and stuff. But I think if you're building wealth, that you should already be taking responsibility for where your money is and knowing that anyway.
Right. So I think the way I see it in my mind is if I launched a seminar today, Tiffany, and I said, there's 2 classes that are being held at the same time.
Right.
If you go through this door, you can go learn how to set a budget. If you go through this door, you can learn how to get rich. Which one would you go to?
Obviously, I would go to the one that says get rich, right?
Right. I just think that's interesting, though, that the power of words, which we always know, there's so much power in what we speak, in what we're doing.
Yep.
But given the opportunity, everyone would go into the room that's how to get rich. They're not going to go into the budgeting room. And so even taking it a step further, I think that's why people are hesitant to sit down and do a budget together.
Yes. And as you were saying earlier, lack of communication. So let me ask you something. So when we're talking about like creating wealth, so you have a lot of companies, homes, a lot of expenses come with that, right?
Yes.
So what are some tips, you know, if you have 1, 3, 5, what are some tips that you would give the audience that are looking for, hey, what are some things that I should be doing along the way to make sure that I am moving forward and creating wealth?
No, I think that's a great question. And one of the things I always try to live by is too much is given, much is required. It's a biblical principle.
Yes.
And so for a lot of years, I had so many assistants in play that I didn't even know where my bank accounts were. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
Didn't even know what banks they were at. Didn't know who was handling what. It just got so big that it could almost turn around and be a dinosaur and eat you because of all the different entities, the different homes. But what I felt called to do 2 years ago was dig in and do the work. And I wanted to have my head wrapped around every moving dollar in my world. I wanted to know where my insurance was. I wanted to know what my premiums were. I didn't even know who my car insurance was with. I mean, that's how bad it was. So once I decided to take that step, honestly, I learned so much. And that's what I can tell people. If I had to give you specific steps, I would say there are 3 main things that people should look at when building wealth, when getting rich. And that is number 1, open and honest communication.
So good.
I don't know why talking about money is such an ooey topic for people, but what's really scary is it's an ooey topic with married couples. It's like the other one doesn't want the other to know what they're spending. And then it's this downhill spiral of even being approached about the topic causes a huge blow up because it's like a dirty little secret that they both carry.
And I think that has got a lot to do with too, because when you get married, you become one, but you're still 2 very different personalities. So a lot of time it's personality traits when they come together, don't share like they should, right?
Yeah, but it truly is. To me, I'm watching this show right now on Netflix. It's so good. But what I notice is a common denominator of every single home that he's going into to look at and teach how to build wealth.
Right.
The first thing, he sits them down at a table and says, when is the last time you two had a conversation about where you are financially and what you're spending and looking at your overall bills? And they both look at each other like waiting for the other to pounce.
Wow.
So it shows me there's this lack of open and honest communication, which there is in every area of life. But I think most importantly in the financial realm when it comes to relationships, that if you just committed to that, and it could be as little of a commitment as, look, let's get together on the 1st, the 15th, and the 30th at this time, and let's do it out in public at a dinner somewhere so it can't get heated, right?
That's smart,
right?
Super smart. Yes.
So go out somewhere, but let's set aside specific time and put it in our calendars to actually sit down and talk about how we're going to build wealth as a couple.
Well, I love that for 2 reasons. Number one, you're taking that accountability, but also you're getting in like a date night. You're spending time together, and you can make it fun. You can totally make it fun. So I think if you get together and you say, hey, we're going to go, you pick the restaurant for the person that, is really the one driving it in the relationship. You pick the restaurant. Let's go somewhere. Let's have some fun, and let's go over this.
That's right. And there's so much freedom in it. I think it's really a uniting thing when you can sit down and do this process on the 1st, 15th, and 30th, because you're going to see a couple things. You're going to see where you are, how much each other is spending, so there's that level of accountability. But you're also going to see, man, look how we're moving towards this goal we set for ourselves to get X car or to save for this home. So you'll be able to celebrate those wins, which to me, and I know you're the same way, like when Ryan and I set a goal in mind, and we start to see it coming to fruition, it gets us excited.
Too excited.
Right? It fuels us to do more because we're about to hit this goal. So for us, it's a positive thing. And I think that's why so many couples up front, I feel like the enemy sometimes steals the intimacy of talking about money between a couple, because it is the biggest cause of divorce in this nation.
Isn't that incredible?
Finances. And it's creating the space for open and honest communication between a couple that can change the entire trajectory of not only their debt, but also their wealth.
And their kids. Their kids. If they have kids, the kids could be watching as well. So it could change that. But I love the idea that it pushes unification between the couple. And there's something special about that. And there's strength in it.
Yeah.
So I love the idea of coming together. I love the idea of doing it out in public. That's funny, but it does make total sense.
Totally.
But also just the idea of coming together, coming clean essentially, and that will build a power couple.
That's right. And the second tip, so the first is obviously open and honest communication, which I recommend meeting 1st, 15th, and 30th. The second thing that we practice is every single day. Now that I wrap my brain around, okay, where my business accounts are, where my personal, I have them on one portal that I can quickly go to. I love mint.com. Have you heard of it?
No, I've heard of it. I don't use it.
Okay. So the reason I love it is because you can actually access every bank account, every credit card, anything that you possibly have on one portal. Wow. And it will analyze and look at every single thing that's coming in and going out and share with you spending habits. It'll compare it month over month to see, hey, you brought in X amount of money this month, but last month you were actually up a little higher. So, or you spent X amount more this month than you did last month on food. It's very interesting to me because I'm all about beating the month before. I love a good, healthy challenge. So for me, mint.com has always been a tool that allows me a one-stop shop to see where my accounts are, how I'm going through the month in comparison to months previous.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I don't do it through mint.com, but I actually will go in. Mike, not with me because I handle the finances, but he knows what's going on because I do communicate it with him, but I go through on a daily basis. I know what is going out and what is coming in. And it's funny because now year after year, there are a lot of things that have came on trend. So I know that certain times a year I spend more. I mean, you may look at your finances, and if you're looking at them and you're paying attention to them, you may realize, gosh, November and December, I'm just making this up. Yeah. November and December, I'm a lot higher. Well, with the holidays coming up, you may spend more or you may spend less because you're eating at home. It may depend, but I think that like I can look back when I'm getting all the bookkeeping and stuff together for like taxes or something like that. And I can look at it and I can know, oh yeah, so that's perfectly normal, even though it's higher because it's been that way for 5-6 years.
Right. No, it makes sense. And I think just knowing where you are in your spending habits helps to guide you. But it is a big component of getting out of debt for sure. Especially when it makes you aware of how much you spend at Starbucks every day, which I don't do. Are you a Starbucks person?
I was for a while. So it just depends on like where we're at in our lives. Like if it's a convenience issue, right? For the most part, yes.
Yeah, I do not do Starbucks. And it's funny, all the people that'll come into the office to bring their debt, that most of them walk in with a Starbucks and I laugh right away. Because I know how much they're probably spending a day on this habit. But it's little tweaks and changes that can literally propel someone out of their current financial situation into another. So the first is an open and honest communication. The second is downloading and visiting the website that gives you a snapshot like a mint.com. And the third thing is, I'm a big believer in giving. I don't think there's any way you can ever outgive in any area of your life. So I always have people come in and they'll say, look, I'm so much in debt. The first thing I would tell you is give. Give. It's the only thing in the Bible God even talks about and says, try me on. And so if you're in a debt situation and you want to get out of debt, give. And there could be great causes that you believe in. There could be foundations. It could be a church that you attend. It could be, it's someone specific that's doing something great, but give stuff away and watch what returns to you. And I think you'll be shocked. And I know that we're wired mentally when we're in debt not to give, to hold everything as tight as we can. But it's actually the opposite approach. In some of the darkest times in my life where I had very little, I was struggling. I was a single mom for a while. I was like living paycheck to paycheck. I really loved quality things back then too. I just knew I had to buy them slowly.
Yes.
But I do know that even in that season, my heart was always to help and give to others. And so I do believe that it's a biblical principle, and I've watched it play out in my life, and I'm sure in yours too.
Absolutely. I love tithe. Well, Mike and I, so we call it tithing or offering, and that has been a huge one for us. And I think that the key in tithing is a lot of people will come up and they'll say, well, when I make more, no, you need to do it. And I'm a big believer and proponent in your first 10% goes to God.
That's right.
He's the one that gave it to you in the first place and gave you the talents to go out and get it.
That's
so
right.
Your first 10% goes to God. And then, there's absolutely the kingdom building after that, the kingdom building aspect. But there's a lot of people that say, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. But I'll do it once I get out of debt or once I start to make money. No, you have to make it a priority. And once you make that a priority and you're disciplined on it, I believe personally that God sees that and he blesses on that.
Absolutely. No, that's really a great way to put it. And I know that we've both seen it happen in our own lives. So if people could just wrap their brain around that concept,
yes,
I think they would see themselves out of debt quickly.
Absolutely. And the idea that I've seen is that people say that once they get to a certain amount, well, now I'm making so much, it's hard to give on that. So if you start with a little and God gives you a lot, it's a lot easier to write those checks when you're making a lot if you've made it a discipline that you're doing in your life and you start doing it when you're working with less.
That's right. Totally. So I have a question for you. You don't even know I'm going to ask this.
I know.
What are your thoughts around these couples? And let's say the wife is a stay-at-home mom, which to me is the most valuable position out there. I'll be the first to tell you, to those moms who are staying home with their kids and playing that role, it is harder than running any organization, multiple organizations. I have so much respect for stay-at-home moms because I have to be honest, I don't know that I could do it to the extent I'm watching some of these moms do it and do a great job because that's not my wiring. But what always has got me is when the husband may be working, but they limit or set a quote unquote, that B word, budget on the wife. Like, how do you interpret that? Are there any suggestions around it for couples who may be experiencing that and maybe building some resentment around, well, I am working, I'm really doing a lot here and I feel guilty about shopping because I have, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So Mike, and I will just say, everybody's situation is different. And we talked about that earlier. But like with us, I've even been in this stay-at-home season of life. I'm in and out of that, and I love doing it. It is hard work.
It is.
And I look at some of these moms that are doing it, and they have so many more kids, or they're so much more involved. And, a lot of times we look at that and we go, mom guilt here or mom guilt there. But I think when you're looking at budgeting, you got to remember, first and foremost, you're a team.
Mm-hmm.
So team comes before everything. And that's been a big one for us, is team comes before everything. Mike may not be as good at, putting the kids' lunches together, but he still does stuff that is super important outside, or I may be the one outside. And I think that it doesn't matter where you're at. If you're contributing and you're contributing to this team, that you should put in things for stuff that you both want.
That's good.
I've never had an issue with Mike having anything, and he's a shoe guy and a car guy, and I've never had an issue with that, and he's never had an issue with me. You just have to make sure that you're both understanding that it's got to stay within whatever you guys are working towards.
That's right. Mm-hmm. No, that's really good. And, for us, Ryan and I have always been in the workforce, but Ryan's always been very open-hearted, generous, like what's mine is yours is mine. But, I'm probably talking to those women out there that are stay-at-home moms.
Right.
And hopefully their husbands will hear this and realize the valuable role that they're playing. It's just as valuable to give them the space to work and just giving them that financial freedom of not feeling guilty for spending something on themselves. Like I just can't understand that.
No. And you've got to remember things, a lot of times we take for granted how things get done.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, garbage. I don't do it, but it gets done, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I may not even think about the fact that that's being done, or dishes, or if it's something that the kids are not doing. I may not think about that, but it is getting done. And so you got to make sure that you're not taking for granted either spouse, either way, and that you're both looking at each other and respecting each other's time, energy, and effort, and then celebrating that.
Totally. So we've given the 3 things that I typically do around managing the finances, and I'm excited because we're going to be able to share our worksheet for How to Build Wealth worksheet that's going to be found on our website for people to download and do themselves. And I think the most important part is the transparency of being honest. So can you kind of talk through some of those categories of when they're looking to build wealth? What are the areas that they should focus on when creating their looking to see what they're currently spending versus what maybe they want to spend or allow themselves to spend, and what that difference is between it? Like, what categories would you say people should focus on?
Well, I think one of the ones, if you're looking to cut some expenses, you need to look at eating out.
Mm-hmm.
I think eating out's a big one. And I'm not saying stop it. That's always something that Mike and I love to do with people.
Yeah,
and we're very outgoing, and we with friends and stuff. There's something special about going out and getting. I'm not saying cut that life. YOLO. Life is short,
right?
And enjoy it,
right?
But you have to be strategic in where you're spending. So, that's one that if you're cutting, be very focused down and accountable of healthcare. How much are you spending on that? How much are you spending on insurance?
Mm-hmm.
What does your mortgage look like if you have a mortgage, or your car payment, or how can you move that and pay it a little bit quicker so that you can move forward and buy something that's going to cash flow?
I have to tell you a funny story about that, actually. So when I was broke, and I mean broke, I love eating out also, and I knew I couldn't afford it. So I actually signed up to be a secret shopper for restaurants. And there is a true thing out there that you can sign up. And what you do is you go in and you rate your overall experience with the restaurant. So you sign up with these companies, and they give you an assignment of specific restaurants to go to. You go eat, and typically it covers the cost of at least 2, sometimes 3 or 4 people. And then you submit your receipt and you get 100% reimbursement.
That's genius.
Isn't that smart?
That is so smart.
Those are the kind of things that got me through and showed me look, I can still do what I want to do. I just have to be smart about it. Same with the car. So there's a program out there that actually pays you to wrap your car in their branding because it's a marketing billboard for them. So for those who are like, I really would love to get this car, but I can't afford the car payment. Well, guess what? Like, think outside the box. Reach out to these companies and get on with a company that will actually pay you, wrap your car in the specific branding it is. And maybe it's a branding you love anyways.
Right.
And it pays your car payment and they pay you for being a marketing billboard for them. So there's always tips to have what you want, satisfy the desire to drive a specific car or eat out, and actually turn it into a money-making opportunity.
Absolutely. I think that is so good.
Yeah.
It's very good tips. So one thing I will tell you not to do. So when Mike and I first got married, we owned a business,
right?
Obviously, because we've always owned, that's what we know. And we were looking at like with our accountant, and he said, anytime you do business dinners, you can write that off. And all of a sudden we're like, what? so we were business dinnering, breakfast, lunch, dinner, forever. But the key is, and that's the thing that maybe somebody doesn't tell you that you need to know, is you do have to be able to pay for those prior to. So that was a new one for us. I mean, we were babies, but that is a learning experience. If you've not learned that yet, if you can't pay for it, don't go buy the dinner.
That's right. No, and it is cheaper to eat at home, especially with kids and the cost of goods right now. So those are the things that if you just make it more of an experience, and we've even tried to do this. I found the best cookbook, by the way. Yes. It's called Half-Baked Harvest, and it's online. The best healthy recipes I've ever had in my life. But that's just a side note for you too. But Half-Baked Harvest. And so the kids have loved it so much, they'd almost prefer for me to cook and I don't like to cook, by the way. I'm not a cook. So the Half-Baked Harvest, though, the recipes are incredible. They're healthy. They're great. Check them out as an alternative to going out to eat. I think you'll be surprised.
That is so good. I actually do love to cook if I have the time to do it.
Yeah.
So if I have the time to do it, I love to get creative and cook. I think I've gotten back into it like as the older I get, and it's healthier. Totally. You don't know what people are putting in stuff when you go out to dinner, unless you're going to a mom and pop place that you're familiar with. But like some of the restaurants out there, you're just not for sure what they're putting into your food or into your kids' food. So with that in mind, I do like to cook at home when I have the chance, just because I know what I'm putting into their food.
Absolutely. I know the other tip that's on the worksheet that we're going to have for people is to actually see what they're currently paying in just their minimum payments to credit card companies.
Yes.
Which is such an interesting concept, because not only are we able to look at their overall financial situation and help steer them in the direction to build wealth, but what people come to realize quickly is that everything that they're paying towards interest and minimum payments right now, which is one of the line items on the worksheet, once you are not making those minimum payments anymore, it flips the complete other direction. It's like if you were spending a total of $700 on minimum payments on credit cards and your debt is now taken care of, where are you allocating that $700 on a monthly basis? Wow. So what would you say to people who are looking at it and thinking about the opportunity to eliminate their debt? How would you spend? Like if you had a flip of $700, what would be your immediate reaction and response? What would you do with it?
See, I love that idea. The first thing I would do with the $700 is I would start to save it, and I would start looking for a cash flow of some sort, either whether it be real estate, whether it be an investment online, whether it be investing in somebody. I would look for something that I could make immediate cash flow on.
That's so good. So you would immediately put it to work for you.
Well, I would wait until I got enough.
Right.
But I mean, $700, and you're bringing that in monthly will add up quick.
Right.
Right?
I just think it's interesting, that switch. It goes from the negative side immediately to the positive side once the debt's eliminated.
It's almost like a goal. So once you get out and you're running towards this goal, all of a sudden you're coming into positive cash flow, and you can go out and actually, as you were talking about, build that debt, or not the debt, build that
wealth.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And that's, when we start sharing with people how they can spend that, that's when it's going to be fun. Because right now I feel like we're talking about debt. We're talking about the ooiness. But the truth is we're talking about it with an end goal in mind. And that is to get people out of the mindset of bondage that finances can have and flip it over to building wealth with taking your passions and making them your purpose in business. So it's going to be exciting, but I think this has been a great starting point for people to go on this journey with us. So thanks for that.
Yes, ma'am. I love being here. I'm excited. I think we've had a great talk on this. And I'm excited to see like how we can move forward with taking people out of debt and moving them toward wealth.
Yeah, love it. All right.